In this lecture, we are going to work on delete course functionality using NgRx Data. So what we want is, for each course here, we are also showing this delete button. So whenever this delete button is clicked, we want to delete that course. Currently, if I click on this delete button, it will simply show this alert pop-up. And if I click on OK, it will not do anything because we have removed that delete functionality from our previous sections. So basically, when this delete button is clicked, this delete button is present in the CourseCard component. So let me open CourseCard component, and before that, let me close other files. So I have this CourseCard component. Let's go to CourseCard component.html. There, for each course, we are displaying this delete button. Okay, and whenever the delete button is clicked, we are calling this onDeleteClicked method. If I go to CourseCard component.ts, there we have this onDeleteClicked method, and the first thing which we are doing is, whenever this method is called, first we are taking a confirmation from the user whether he really wants to delete the course. If he clicks on OK, then inside this if block, we are going to write the logic to delete the course from the backend. And for that here, what I'm going to do is, first of all, let's go ahead and let's inject an instance of course entity service. So I'll create a private property. I'll call it as course service, maybe course entity service. And this is going to be of type course entity service. Okay. And from here, I can simply say this dot course entity service dot delete. And to this delete method, what do we need to pass? We need to pass the ID of the course which we want to delete. So that we can get from course.id. Okay. Now currently we are not overriding this delete method. So when we are calling this delete method on this course entity service, by default it is going to call the delete method of entity collection service base. But when the delete method of this entity collection service base will be called, it will try to make a delete request to the default URL, which is root URL /API/course. Instead, what I want is, I want to override the delete functionality, the delete method of this entity collection service base in my course data service. So here I'm also going to override the delete method. So for this delete method, we need to pass the ID of the entity. So that ID can be a number or a string value. In our case, it is a string value. So I will remove this number from here. And we can also pass some HTTP options if we want to. But in my case, I don't want to pass any HTTP options, so I will remove it. And then from here, from this function, we are going to return the ID of the deleted course. And the ID is a string value, so I will remove this number from here. We are going to return a string value, which is going to be the ID of the course which we want to delete. And now I'll go to courseservice.ts, and there I also have delete course method here. So from here, I'm going to copy this code and I'm going to paste it here. And here it is expecting an ID value. So instead of calling it key, I'll call it as ID. Okay. Now here we have an error here, because if you see, for this method, we are saying that we are going to return an observable of type string. But here, this delete method, it is going to return us an observable of an object. So what I'm going to do here is, the observable which the delete method will return, on that I'll use the pipe operator. Inside that, I'll use the map operator. And this map operator is going to receive the data returned by the delete method, the observable returned by the delete method. And from here, I am simply going to return the ID of the deleted course. So that ID we are already getting in the parameter. So I will simply return that ID. And in this way, we have overridden the delete method of entity collection service base. And now, wherever we are making a delete request, wherever we are calling the delete method, for example, let me save the changes here. So we are calling delete method on the course entity service here. So this is going to call our custom overridden delete method. Okay, let's save the changes. So now let's test the functionality of our application. So if I go to our application, there if I reload the page, you'll see that for some reason the courses are not being rendered here. And if I open the Redux Dev Toolkit, in there we have this entity cache, there we have this course entity, and in there you will see that this entities is now storing an object, and in that object we have author, description, this ID, and all the values there, they're stored as an object. So if I go to my real-time database, there also you will see that here we have the courses collection in Firebase real-time database, and there instead of storing the course objects, you will see that it's storing author, description, ID, etc. So something has gone wrong here. And what has gone wrong is, I think, when we updated the course, instead of updating the course by its ID, it updated the entire collection. So that could be one issue. So we need to check that. We are calling this update method from within course detail component. So not course detail component, inside add course component. So here we are calling the update method. Here everything looks okay to me. So let's check the URL. Okay, I think this is where I have made mistakes. So here it should be the ID of the course. So here I can say update.id.json. So here after the courses, after the collection name, I need to specify the ID of the course which I want to update, and then it should be .json. I think this was the issue. Okay, let me save the changes here. Let's go back to our application, and before that I will delete this object also from here, and let's start creating new courses. So because of that simple mistake, we have lost all the data. But yeah, let's create a new course. So for that, first I'm going to create this course. Let's copy the description. Let's copy author name, John Doe, and let's specify price as 49.99. Let me also browse an image, and let's click on this create course button. So that course has been created. Here you can see a new course has been created. Let me create another course. So I'll also create this Angular course. Let's copy the description for that course. Let's say author is Jane Smith and price is 69.99. And let's also browse the image. And let's create that course. So that course has been created. Now let me try to edit the course. So currently if you see, now we have two course objects. Now let me try to edit this course. So I'll say Angular from 0 to hero 2025. Let's simply update that title. The title has been updated here, and let's quickly verify. Okay, so now it has not replaced the entire courses collection. Okay, so now it is working as expected. Now if I try to delete a course, for example, if I try to delete this Angular course, here it is asking, do you really want to delete this course? I'll click on OK, and that course is deleted. Let's also go back to Firebase database, and from there also you will see that the course is deleted. So the delete functionality is also working as expected. All right. Now before I wrap up this lecture, I also want to show you two configurations which we can do for our entity, for our courses entity. So for example, let me open developer console here, and I want to open this Redux Dev Toolkit. So let's say I want to edit this course. Okay, for that I'll click on this edit button. I will edit something. Let's say I edit the title to JavaScript course 2025. And when I click on this update course button, it is going to dispatch two actions. And that I want to show you. When I click on this update course button, you will notice that it has not immediately changed it here. First, it tried to save the data in the database. And once the data is successfully saved in the database, it has dispatched another action called success that is going to update the new data in the store. So only after we have received a success response from our HTTP call from this action, then only we are going to update the store. But what we can also do is we can do optimistic updates. That means we know that update will surely happen. So instead of waiting for the success response to come and this success action to be dispatched, I will update it immediately. And that is also possible. For that, let's go to our entity metadata. So here we have entity metadata. There, for this course entity, I want to set a configuration. I want to set entity dispatcher options, and inside that I can set an option called optimistic update. So here you can see we have optimistic add, optimistic delete, optimistic save entities, optimistic update, and optimistic upsert. Here I want to set optimistic update and I want to set it to true. This simply means that it will not wait for success response to come and the success action to be dispatched in order to update the state. So for example, now you will notice that when I update this course title, the changes will reflect immediately. It will not wait for this success action to be dispatched. If I update the course, you see the change is reflected immediately. It did not waited for the success action to be dispatched. And this is what we mean by optimistic update. In the same way, we can also do optimistic delete. That means when the delete button is clicked, it will be immediately removed from the store. It will not wait for the success response to come from the backend to check if the entity is really deleted in the backend or not. It will just remove that entity object from the store. So that also we can set. We can set optimistic delete also to true. But remember that we should never set optimistic add to true. Why? Because when we are going to add a new object, a new data, let's say a new course in the backend, then there an ID will be generated. And we need that ID in our Angular application because we also want to store the course object with its ID. Then only we will be able to search it or delete it or update it, right? So once the entity object, in our example, the course object is created in the backend, we are going to receive that course object in the response with the automatically generated ID property. And we want to save the course object with that ID in the NgRx store. So that's why we should never set optimistic add to true. But we can set this optimistic update and optimistic delete to true. And I just explained what do we mean by this. But here I'm not going to do that. I'll simply comment it. I just wanted to show you that this is also possible. So this is all from this lecture. If you have any questions from this lecture, then feel free to ask it. Thank you for listening and have a great day.